Never move to Ottawa Hills without knowing these cost of living facts. This upscale Toledo suburb might surprise you in ways both good and bad. Hi guys, I'm Garrett Luhring, host of Moving to Toledo and your local realtor with Danbury Realtors and the Luxie and Home Team. Today we're breaking down what life in Ottawa Hills, Ohio really costs, from buying a home and paying taxes to everyday expenses like groceries and utilities. We'll compare it with nearby places like Sylvania, Perrysburg, Maumee, and Toledo, and even throw in some national perspective. Stick around because one cost here might actually be lower than you expect. If you find this helpful, please like this video and subscribe to stay current on everything happening in the Toledo area around real estate. So let's get into it. First, let's talk about housing cost in Ottawa Hills versus neighboring areas. Housing is almost always the biggest sticker shock in Ottawa Hills. In August 2025, the median sold price for a home in Ottawa Hills was about $417,000. That's much higher than what you'll pay in many neighboring suburbs. In Sylvania, for example, median listing prices were closer to $380,000. That includes a lot of new construction, but sold prices were closer to $290,000 to $320,000. Zillow put average values in that area around $322,000. Perrysburg had median listing prices of about $403,000, with sold homes nearing $350,000. They also have a big supply of new construction. However, average home values here are right around the $330,000 mark. Now, Maumee, on the other hand, is more affordable. Median listing prices here are closer to $295,000, while sold prices are closer to $260,000, depending at what sources you use. By comparison, Toledo is an absolute bargain. Median sale prices in July of 2025 were nearing up to only $140,000, and the average home value well under $130,000 in many parts of the city. Now, nationally, the picture shifts slightly. The National Associations of Realtors reported the median single-family existing home price in Q2 of 2025 was about $430,400. So Ottawa Hills is now aligning more with national medians than with most Ohio suburbs, which are well below the national medians. For local buyers, the contrast is still stark. The nearby suburbs offer a lot more house for the same or much less money. Now, let's move on to property taxes, the big wallet hit. Housing might be the headline cost, but property taxes are the sidekick that really hits hard. In Ottawa Hills, the effective property tax rate is about 2.9%, which is among the highest in Lucas County. For a $400,000 house, you're looking at roughly $11,560 annually in taxes. That is not a trivial number comparing to Toledo, where the tax value is around 2.47% for properties under Toledo Public Schools. That same $400,000 home is only about $9,800 a year in taxes. Sylvania has an effective rate close to 2.58%, so that same $400,000 home will be closer to $10,300 in annual taxes, while Me's is slightly easier on the wallet at 2.35%, and Perrysburg, which is still the highest in Wood County, is lower than most of the other homes or the other neighborhoods I discussed in Lucas County at around 2.03%. So on your $400,000 home, you might pay close to $8,000 a year or so. Why the difference? Well, because Ottawa Hills invests heavily in its schools and village services. It's its own village, and homeowners carry much of that load, especially since there isn't a large commercial tax base within this village. So you get high quality, but you certainly pay for it. Moving on to income taxes, sale taxes, and other tax burdens. Obviously, property tax is not the only tax bite. Local income tax in Ottawa Hills charges about 1.5% municipal income tax on earned income. That is a percent lower than Toledo, which is about 2.5%, and fairly typical, or still even a little bit less than some of the surrounding suburbs like Perrysburg, Holland, Sylvania, Monclova. Now, if you end up in a township like Sylvania Township, Monclova Township, Perrysburg Township, Middleton Township, you have a 0% income tax rate within our local townships. Looking at state income taxes, Ohio's rates typically are between 2.7 to 3.5% on average, but apply to everyone over income thresholds. Nothing special there. Combine state and local, and you may be around 5% in your overall income taxes, depending on your bracket, of course. Looking at sales tax in Lucas County, which Ottawa Hills is a part of, the sales tax rate is roughly 7.75%. If you buy a big ticket item like a car or expensive electronic, that extra percentage adds up versus areas with slightly lower rates in nearby counties. So, in income and sales tax, Ottawa Hills isn't widely out of stride. The big burden tends to come from the property taxes and the overall housing cost. Now, let's talk about some everyday expenses in this area like utilities, groceries, and transportation. And here's where the script might surprise you a bit. Life outside of housing and taxes in Ottawa Hills isn't always more expensive, and in some cases, it's actually better or even less expensive than the suburbs. But let's look at utilities. Many homes here are older and larger, so heating in the winter and cooling in the summer can certainly cost more. But rates for electricity, gas, water are all near the Ohio average. Water and sewage is handled via the regional system, so no exotic extra charges for being in the village there. Looking at groceries, prices tend to be modest in this area. Supermarkets in Toledo and Sylvania or along major routes all serve Ottawa Hills residents and are easy to get to. Grocery costs are roughly 5 to 10% cheaper than many big city averages still, which you'll find all around Lucas and Wood County when you go to buy groceries. It's not just Ottawa Hills. However, some of the trendier Whole Foods and newer stores might have a bigger price tag, but that's not always because of the location. Looking at transportation in Ottawa Hills, proximity is a huge plus. Much of Toledo is still not great for walkability, and Ottawa Hills is included in that. But many people who live in Ottawa Hills don't find it too difficult to commute into Toledo or some of the suburbs nearby, as most of the areas around Toledo and Lucas County you can reach within a 25-minute drive. Shorter drive times, less wear and tear on cars. Also, with gas prices in Ohio typically being a bit lower than the national average, you can save some money there. But you will need a car. Public transportation is limited, but because you're closer to key job centers, groceries, and other amenities, that helps save money. Looking at health and miscellaneous, booking doctor's appointments here, dental work, pharmacies, all tend to cost near or slightly below the national averages still. Entertainment like restaurants, small outings, movie theaters also run close to what the rest of Toledo nearby would charge. Not luxury, but not costly surprises. Ottawa Hills is mostly a residential area. There are not many businesses within Ottawa Hills. So, inevitably, you have to drive outside the city, which is accommodating everybody, not just the Ottawa Hills residents. So, there you will find that cost of living is still very mild. Now, some hidden cost and lifestyle trade offs that some people aren't always aware of. And these are always in spreadsheets, but they can matter more than many expect. One, let's look at home maintenance. Many homes in Ottawa Hills are older or historic. That means you might face high costs for updating old plumbing, windows, heating systems, some roofs, siding, and general upkeep all can add up, especially in homes built decades or a century ago. Looking at lifestyle pressure. Affluence has social expectations. Let's just be real about this. Keeping up with landscaping, house appearance, vehicle, and community norms matters more here than in many of the other suburbs or Toledo. If you're used to a more modest lifestyle, that social standard, not a rule but a vibe, can add both emotional and monetary pressure. Now let's look at school cost. If you have kids, the excellent public schools are a major draw and the best in Lucas County, some of the best in Ohio, and a big part of what you pay your taxes for. But private schooling or alternative educational programs will be extra, and Toledo does have plenty of options. Also, you may pay for activities and expectations such as sports, arts, and additional extracurricular activities that are above average in this area. Looking at resale and the competition, because it's small and prestigious, resale demand remains strong, but so does competition. Houses here do tend to sell for high prices, however, it's not always fast. It can be, but not everybody's looking in this area or for this prestige. If you're buying, you'll need good financing, readiness to act, and sometimes pay top dollar for properties in peak condition. Also, downsizing or moving later might come with high expectations on upkeep, which might mean more upfront investment. So, How does Ottawa Hills stack up against the alternatives? Well, let's compare with a few nearby suburbs so you can see potential trade offs. Sylvania offers somewhat lower home prices, though not cheap. It's more accessible for many buyers wanting good schools, reasonable amenities, and a nice, safe environment. Perrysburg is similar in prestige and quality of schools, often with newer homes, but plenty of resale as well. Taxes are lower in many cases here, and that can be a big plus. Looking at Maumee and Toledo, they provide much more affordable home entry points. So if your priorities are space, cost savings, or lower monthly obligations, with good schools, those places can still be a win. But of course, you give up some of the prestige and maybe some of the small village charm or the school ranking, depending where at in Toledo schools. So is the cost really worth it? Well, here's the bottom line. Ottawa Hills is premium in every sense: housing, taxes, lifestyle, schools. So, if your budget can handle it and you care deeply about public schools, beautiful homes with character, safety, and status, living here can feel like you're getting a great value. But if you're working on a tighter budget, want flexibility, dislike high tax bills, or prefer more diversity or newer housing, then you should seriously weigh your options. Sometimes paying less for a great life in a nearby suburb gives you nearly all of the upside without as much strain. So ultimately, the cost of living here can be steep, but it buys you something most places don't: prestige, a strong community, peace of mind, and top quality in many local services. Just be sure you know what you're paying for in dollars and lifestyle trade off. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you found it helpful, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel to stay up to date on all things Northwest Ohio. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one.